Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Tosh Customs and today we are taking a look at the Bandai Tamashii Nations EVA-00 prototype metal build figure. Obviously this has already been unboxed. I won't be opening it for the first time. I wanted to take a look at it myself and sort of get the figure set up because there is just a slight bit of assembly that you have to do for this guy. And so I wanted to do that off camera. And so I have him sort of geared up and kitted out now. And so we'll be diving in and taking a look. I've wanted a metal build figure for a while now. And so this one seemed like a perfect one to hop on as it's just coming out. And so I actually ordered mine straight from Japan. And so I believe that this is probably one of the first English reviews of this figure that is popping up on YouTube, because I know that US side distributors have not gotten their copies of this figure yet. So I'm super excited to be able to bring this to you guys. And I know I don't have a huge, Gundam, anime, Evangelion related audience. I'm not calling Evangelions Gundams, but just sort of, I know that my audience is more for the Marvel and DC stuff, but this is something that I wanted to show off. I wanted to purchase, and so I figured I might as well share it with you guys too. So real quick, we're going to cut over to the packaging and let's take a look. So right here we have the packaging for this figure. It is so tall. This beautiful metallic print of metal build EVA-00 prototype, as you can see right there. Great picture of the figure, incredible colors, just really awesome design. We can see that we have Bandai and Tamashii Nations, as well as some different little stickers of authenticity there. Super cool. It's so big that you're starting to see some of the other stuff on the sides of my desk here and on the other sides of my setup. As we flip to the side, we have EVA-00 with its battle mask on, which is one of the new additions that the redesign comes with. As well as flipping to the back side, we can see more product shots of the figure, as well as the fact that it has some accessories that can be integrated onto the two other metal build figures that have come out so far, as well as they're showing off some of the conversions for the shoulder pads and the fins that you can do for this figure. Very cool stuff. I don't read Japanese, so I can't tell you what most of the display or most of the text is saying, but still a very impressive piece. For scale, this package is so big that it's actually taller than the Hot Toys Venom figure. So if you guys are kind of familiar with the size of that guy, it's about 14 inches tall. This towers still above Venom. And there's a lot that's packed in here. Also for reference, since this is a metal build figure, and I'm going to put my phone back on the stand here, since this is a metal build figure, he is packaged, or she, I should say, Eva prototype is packaged in this really nice foam case that you can see here. So the figure is actually laid inside the case with some extra protective padding inside it, and then all the accessories are in plastic trays around that. So very cool, very exciting stuff, and I was really impressed with the packaging of this figure. It was done so incredibly well. If you're picking this up, you don't have to worry about the figure being damaged in packaging. As far, it's so secure. So looking at the figure right here, obviously I have it kitted out quite a bit. So let me break this down a little bit and we'll talk about it. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pop off the battle mask here. As you can see, it's casted out of this dark charcoal gray type plastic. It's got some red, some like burnt red orange detailing, as well as some slightly like copper paint. We have some gunmetal on the front mouth plate, or really what is the eye plate, as well as off to the sides of this rebreather gas mask type thing. So really cool. I like all the battle masks that these metal builds come with, but obviously I only own this one. So moving the hands and arms out of the way here, we can take a look at EVA-00. And if you guys are at all fans or familiar with the anime and with the animated movies, you'll know that EVA-00 looks somewhat like this, but a lot has been changed. Firstly, the orange is not nearly as dark. This orange here is much on the lighter tone, almost closer to like a deeper yellow than like a true saturated orange. So they definitely brightened up that color. They've also added this really cool blue turquoise, blue turquoise to break up all the orange in there. And you can also see that part of the die cast is a lot of metallic green. And now not all this metallic green is die cast. Some of it is just painted, but the die cast is so cool. It makes the joint super tight, and it's really, really great for the construction of this figure. You know, for something so intricate and detailed, having a nice solid metal frame under it both adds weight to and you know, it feels like it's quality. It doesn't feel hollow. It doesn't feel light, especially with the way a lot of the plastic's layered. I could definitely imagine if this was made out of all plastic, it would feel hollow and flimsy or really easy to break. But having that metal structure underneath everything definitely, at the very least, gives off a feeling of security, if not also provides one for the figure. I think a huge difference that you'll probably notice is that there's a lot more white scattered into the figure. You know, this orange yellow is definitely a predominant color, but there's a lot of other stuff breaking it up. And another noticeable thing is that the eye here is actually in a green. I know the light's not picking it up too well, but obviously it's not that standard red that the original EVA prototype was in. So that's another fun thing that got switched up. So pulling it off the display stand, which we will talk about shortly, and punching in, and there's some really, really great decals on here. You can see some little warning symbols up here. I don't know if these are warning or this is, you know, from the anime or show. Once again, haven't watched it. I'm really just here for the fact that this is an incredible design with a ton of detail. You can see here it says EVA-00 as well as Evangelion. And then up here on the chest plate, similar to really all the other EVA metal builds, you can see that there is the Nerve logo right there. It also says Evangelion there again. And we have some more of these little circular symbols on the legs. There's not too much decaling overall, but it definitely feels like there's just enough to get the job done, to get the feeling across. Also, I missed it earlier, on the arms it says Test Type EVA. So super, super cool. Let's talk about articulation really quick, and I'll pull this gun out of the hand for the time being. Let me just jimmy that out of there. Put that off to the side. So coming to articulation, or maybe I should talk about what has to be assembled first. Let's do that. Talking about assembly, this whole stand, this whole hanger frame that the EVA can be displayed on, you have to assemble it. So it comes as this flat base plate, and you'll see that there are these portholes here, and all these other pieces plug into portholes. And so you have to pop out these little caps that cover these portholes down, and that's super easy. And the caps are really great because they do make the floor of this base look really flush. Bandai Tamashii did a really good job with hiding those holes and not making them feel like really obvious or gross, because there's definitely some stands that don't hide their portholes as well. You get these two side frame pieces that just plug in, and there's a bunch of ports on the sides of these so that you can plug all the various accessories onto the frame, as well as you have these two taller crane pieces that allow you to port the fins and the arms into the frame. And then lastly, you have this nice, really firm, not really ratcheted, but tension stand that you can move around, and so you can sort of pose the Evangelion maybe flying or getting ready to run off the platform. And it has the umbilical cord port that plugs into the back there. So really, really nice setup. And if we look here, we can see that it says EVA-00 prototype 00. The other metal build figures are labeled 01 and 02 respectively. And so it is nice that there is some extra detail put into these stands, and it's not some kind of just default display, but that individual care, at least in terms of the printing on it, has been changed per figure. So that's really cool to see, and that's super nice. So let's talk about the construction of this figure now. The two things that really switch out on the figure that aren't standard are, one, these fins. The figure does not come packaged with these fins, but what you have to do is you have to port these two little die cast pins up to the top of the shoulders there, and then you see these two wing pieces that tab into the back. And so that's how you get that full Evangelion fin look, and obviously it's broken up here so that the shoulders have some articulation, but from the front and from the sides, it definitely gives off those giant shoulder fin, that giant shoulder fin look or design. Obviously, because these have been redesigned and are a lot thinner, the progressive knife that the EVAs use can't be stored up here, but you can pin the sheath onto the side into one of these two portholes, and these fins have portholes on the inside and on the outside, so you technically have 8 storage ports on these shoulder/back fins alone. So that's super cool. The other feature for, you know, assembly or disassembly that the EVA has is these shoulder pads, and these shoulder pads are on a metal ball peg. And so let me just see if I can pop this shoulder pad out. There we go. You can see it's a metal ball right there. And so what you can do is you can take the shoulder piece right here, and then you can plug it back on the top. And give me a sec. There we go. You can plug it in. And it's on its own separate hinge, so it can hinge up and down on its own, and since it's a ball, you also get a little bit of rotation with it as well. Not too much, but enough so that you can flex it around a little bit. And I honestly actually like the figure more without the fins directly on the shoulders and just have the back fins, because the way that the standard shoulders that it comes with are packaged is the fin is attached to the shoulder plate and it's on a ball peg. So that means if you're moving the shoulder around, you have to move both of these independently, because otherwise it'll just sort of follow and things start like hitting each other and clipping and stuff like that. And so it's just sort of a hassle to deal with 2 free moving points off of a ball hinge on the shoulder, because whenever you want to move the shoulder, you have to concern yourself with, you know, the shoulder pad as well as the fin up top. So it's a whole thing, but diving in here just so that you guys get a better idea of the detail, you can see a lot of etched line work in here, as well as all these bolts are picked out in that metallic green. And so it's just really pretty. Great paintwork on here overall. Quite impressed. Real quick, the price point I paid about $350 total for this guy, which is about, I want to say about $80, if not a little bit more, over what the retail / like pre-order price was. And, you know, obviously that's because it's upcharged. It's also coming straight from Japan, but I was impatient and I was like, I really want this now. So for you people out there who are, you know, still considering buying this, just know that you are going to have to pay a little bit of a higher price because the pre-orders are closed and have been closed for a little while. So just wanted to throw that caveat out there. So in terms of what makes this a metal build, the entire frame is metal. So your elbows, a lot of internals in the biceps, your shoulders, as well as sort of the butterfly hinges that sit inside, your entire frame down the center here of like the spine, torso, abdomen area is all metal, and then your knee joints, your hip thigh joints, and your hip thigh joints, and that's it. So your very far extremities, so your ankles, your wrist pegs, and the internals of the head joint, those are all plastic. But your main body frame, all die-cast metal, cold to the touch. It's a great feeling. There's also some external metal pieces that show themselves just in the form of decoration. So you can see that we have these wonderful side pieces right here. We have metal in the joints, as well as metal in the front of this thigh. Really incredible metal joints here. At the hips, you can see some blue light detail painted in, as well as this really cool thing where the hip joints, you can see that they extend out and in, they slide in and out. So not only is it using a metal frame, there's extra metal engineering involved in this EVA, which is super cool. And if you guys are familiar with the metal builds, you know that all the metal builds have those little details. Most of this build is just a recolor and a head change with some extra accessories, but impressive nonetheless. Funny enough, this eyepiece, it's semi-clear, but it mostly looks like it's painted in this metallic blue. I would have liked a clear eyepiece in there with maybe some detail underneath, but they do have a clear piece for the second camera up top. So interesting decisions there that they would paint the front one, but not the top one, or vice versa. I would have loved to see, you know, sort of that clear plastic eye detail on the front eyepiece, but that's all good. So in terms of articulation, you can see that there is like this extra joint that sits between the chest and the shoulder that allows you to push higher up and down. It doesn't work, it works a little bit like a butterfly joint, but it doesn't really crunch into the chest too much because of how wide and angular the chest is. So you don't get too much butterfly cross, but you do get some going back, which is really nice. And as you can see, wonderful metal detail and paint application all the way through. Your shoulder, it can, you have to sometimes move that shoulder joint out of the way, but you can bend it all the way almost up to 90. You just sort of have to be careful with it because you don't want to scratch the paint on this guy at all. But there we go. If you move the shoulder joint up first and then the arm, you can get straight to 90. You have a double bend at the elbow, and you can see you get an incredible bend there. Really awesome. And another cool feature is that you can see some detailing in there that also moves at the elbow joint. So also very cool. The wrists are this ball peg hinge. So there's a ball joint that sits inside the hand, a ball joint that sits inside the forearm, and then it's on a hinge here. The plastic that the hands are made out of, they're semi-flexible, but as you can see, like I can sort of squeeze the fingertips in a little bit, but the plastic overall is pretty rigid. And while that's really great for holding guns and its other weapons, and you know, not warping over time or, you know, against different pressure, it means that switching out the wrist is very tough. And so I'm not going to do it on camera because it's honestly just a real pain. But the tension on there, I would say, is way too high. Because you're dealing with a metal figure, meaning that you're dealing with metal and plastic, you can definitely hear that metal creak when you put a lot of force onto this figure. And unfortunately, the switching out the hands does require you to apply a lot of force onto those arms. And so that's just a little bit nerve-wracking. And even though I've done it a couple times now, still I don't feel all too comfortable with it. It's not the the most fun user experience, especially at the price point that these guys are coming at. So just a thing, I wish Bandai Tamashii Nations would use a little bit more of a rubbery hand, something closer to what we see with some of those softer Mezco hands. That would be really great to deal with those joints. The head here, at the base of its neck, it has a little bit of a joint that allows you to move forward and back. It's nothing crazy, but you get some forward and back. And then the head has a little interesting piece. So let me pop the head off real quick. So as you can see right here in the chin, the camera will focus, right here in the chin, there's another port. And that port is for this little die-cast green metal fin. So normally that metal fin plugs into the neck there. And what that does is it acts as a filler. So when your head is down, this, you know, with the neck pegged in and everything, this green fin fills up the space between the neck and the chin. Unfortunately, what that means is by having this fin in there, you really limit your head articulation. So the manual that the figure comes with does note that you can pop the head off and pop that fin off in order to redeem some more of that articulation. And so that's one of the first things I did, was I popped that fin out. And so once you pop that fin out, you can get full side to side. You can really, you can bring it around 360 like so. You get much more up and down as well. So you can see he can tuck all the way down and look, or she can tuck all the way down and look all the way basically straight, if not a little higher than straight. In terms of ab crunch, you do get two joints for the ab crunch. You get one, let me move this shoulder. Yeah, see, once again, the plates and all the fins are getting stuck on each other. So that's sort of what I was talking about. There we go. Let me slide that out of the way, move the arm up. You get a joint up here as well as a joint. So you get a joint right under the top of the chest and a joint right at the hips. And so you get some nice forward and back there. You don't get as much back, unfortunately, but you do get a really deep forward bend. So you're able to straighten it all the way out and then crunch all the way forward like so. It looks really good. It's got a really great range right there. The big thing to be careful of is all these plastic plates are painted. I wish that they were more casted in this in their different colors, especially these where it's like segmented off pieces, orange, white, orange, white. As far as I can tell, they look more painted than they do casted, which means that, you know, everything on here technically could be subject to paint rub. And so it would be nice if more of those pieces were casted in plastic, but can't complain too much there. I'm going to switch out the shoulder pad for the sake of the review and for the sake of the ease of movement. So there we go. And this is probably the configuration I'll keep the figure in, just because it makes it a lot easier to move. Coming down to the thighs now, at the hips, you can kick basically all the way forward. You don't get too much back movement, unfortunately. You get a little bit. So if this is straight, you probably get about 30, 40 degrees or so. You get an absolutely incredible double hinge at the knee. And this little knee pad plate does have a joint in there. So you can bend it so that the distance between this knee pad and the front of that shin plate aren't as far. So you can sort of help with the continuity of that piece right there. Pushing the leg forward again, you come down to the ankle. You have this blue back ankle plate right here, which can actually be pulled out of the way so that you can put the foot up all the way like so. So you get an incredible range of motion there at the foot. And I like how these almost look like sporty tennis shoes. I think that's really fun. You can then push it all the way forward and you get a toe bend right there. So an absolute incredible amount of movement. Also, this front ankle piece is on both a hinge joint coming in and out, as you can see right there, in and out, as well as a ball joint. So you get some rotation there so that you can do full coverage along with the ankle. And then your ankle slides all the way forward, all the way back on a hinge that's up inside the leg. So really, really cool stuff. You also get more than enough tilt on that foot for anything you need. I'm seeing that the base is starting to get in the way and keeps on trying to pull the focus, but hopefully we're doing well so far. So with all that articulation out of the way, oh, the only other thing I need to show you is this back tab piece right here actually bends in when you bend the knee. You can see it there. It folds under the knee, and that's just a part of the engineering of the leg there. So super, super cool. A great addition to the figure. A really, really nice inclusion. I'm going to pull out the long arm. I'm just going to make the EVA stand here for the time being. So going over the accessories real quick, we have the pallet rifle. It's mostly casted in just this sort of charcoal gray plastic. We have a little orange bit that got painted in right there. You can also see some gunmetal detailing in these little fan vents on the back, as well as some gunmetal inside the spokes of the stock. And then the barrel is done in a gunmetal, and you can't see into these vents due to the lighting. Got to keep my hand here. You can't see into the vents due to the lighting, but there is gunmetal detail in there, as well as some gunmetal right here around the magazine. The magazine does pull out and is its own separate piece. Unfortunately, none of it is detailed or painted, just casted in that same gray plastic, and that just tabs right back in. Easy peasy. Moving on, we have a slew of hands, including some really expressive grasping ones, and as you can see here, some more of that really great metallic green and also a silver dot right over the pointer finger knuckle and right over that back thumb knuckle right there. So really cool. The rest of it is casted out of a very similar flat gray plastic. There's a bunch of other hands, including fists, a pair of fists, pair of knife holding hands, pair of trigger fingers, a pair of relaxed hands, and I think that's it. Yeah, I think I named all of them. So quite a slew of hands that it comes with, and I love that all of them are symmetrical. I've been seeing a lot of figures recently come with asymmetrical hands, and that just really sucks because it limits the poses and it limits what you can do with the figure. So I'm glad that symmetrical right and left over the whole cast of hands. Great touch on Bandai Tamashii Nation's part. In terms of the rest of the accessories, here we have the progressive knife. It comes with a sheath, also casted in that gray plastic, and as you can see, a little bit of orange detail in the sheath right there, some great casted detail, and some orange paint inside the bolts of the sheath. Coming to the blade itself, the blade is a really interesting color. It is both gold and silver at the same time. When you have like the light casting shadow on it, it looks gold, or when there's like in the shadowed parts it looks gold, but when light's shining on it, it looks silver. I can't describe it other than that, and I think the camera's picking it up kind of well. You can see how up here it looks more silver, but then like down here in the blade you get a little bit more of a gold tinge. I don't know how they did that, if they just layered silver and gold, but it's a really interesting effect. The rest of it, you can see casted gray handle once again. You'll notice that all the grips of everything is just casted plastic, and that's due to the fact that the hands, once again, are very tough, very stiff plastic, and so they can't really detail the grips because they deal with paint rub. So they just left all of the grips just in casted black, and then besides that, orange paint application over the whatever the hilt, maybe, I don't know, hilt, grip, whatever, and then sort of that black back supporting part of the blade. So pretty nice right there. This EVA prototype version also comes with this battery pack piece. You can plug the umbilical cord, which is just this really loose rubbery pipe, and I've left that off to the side. I'm not really going to talk about the umbilical cord because honestly, it could have been done way better. I think they should switch to a more posable wired umbilical cord, but what we get right now is just this very loose, soft rubber. It's not great. It's not worth putting in the video if I'm being honest. But anyways, we have the battery packs here. All of them are decaled with some warning electricity symbols and some Japanese, as well as that nerve logo. Each of these battery packs can be tabbed off, and on the inside you have a tab here to each battery pack, and each battery pack actually comes with an extra accessory. So the extra accessory here is a tab, and then your tab has a peg on it. And so this allows you to peg the batteries, not only tabbing them onto this giant carrying rack, but you can also tab them into any of the number of ports on the EVA figure, which include the additional thigh plate storage or the shoulder plate storage. So since we're talking about storage here, these thigh plates right here, they can tab off. They have 5 ports on them, and they are each designated between right and left, and that's just something you have to figure out on your own. I wish there was labeling on them, but there's not. You just have to see how it fits in best. Where they tab into is this, whoops, has a tendency to fall out. It's just on 2 little tabs. But it the tab is deep into the leg, and you can conceal that by this hinge right here that helps this panel slide over. And so as you can see, you can slide over and snap that in, and now it's basically seamless. The issue with such a seamless application on the leg is that it's very hard to pull back out again. And so I found that the best way to do it is not to jimmy with that double joint, and instead just to pull out the armor piece, slide that joint back. As you can see, the joint moves forward and backwards as so. So slide that joint back, tab the orange panel back on, and then take your thigh piece and tab it into the side of the figure. And the tab's very secure. I don't feel like I have to worry about it coming out. So there you go. That's some of your other storage right there. The other thing that the EVA comes with, and each of these EVAs have unique accessories, and so the ultra unique accessory, besides the battery packs, for this EVA is what they call the recoilless rifle. It doesn't really look like a rifle at all. It looks like a gigantic bazooka with these really crazy exhausts out the back. It has these 2 big exhausts coming out the back there, so whatever kind of blowback from ammo this thing is firing, it's really dispersing that well and has to focus all that energy backwards in what I assume is an effort not to knock the whole EVA back on its butt. Anyways, as you can see up here, we have Nerve, and that is painted in a light gray, and we see a little bit of other light gray around the figure. Unfortunately, as far as I can tell, there's no other light gray except for the little fan parts on the back of the pallet rifle. So really interesting color choice and design there. I think they should have maybe gone with some of the silver that shows up in other parts of the paint applications, in some of the other accessories, or maybe even that metal gunmetal, something like what we're seeing here right at the front of the barrel, but it's fine, it's whatever, still looks good. You can see orange details throughout, and here we have the grip for the recoilless rifle, and once again just cast it out of that dark gray plastic. And then what we also come with are these little storage clamp-like things. So what you get is a little slide piece right here, and so this you can slide different rails from different accessories into this piece, and that has a porthole. This porthole can plug into any of the storage ports on the frame or on the EVA, and then you also get two of these arm accessory pieces, so that on top of that you can also give it a little bit extra length and range, so that you know, you can move them around a little bit more or get maybe some extra posing options out of them. So there you go, that's the recoilless rifle and the extra arm that comes with it. So there are two other things I want to talk about with this figure. The first one is the replaceable parts for your other EVAs. The other EVA figures do not have interchangeable shoulder plates like this one does. This one has plates so that you can take off those sometimes unwieldy shoulder fins. EVA-01 and EVA-02 did not come with them, and so now if you buy EVA-00 prototype, you can get shoulder pads properly labeled for EVA-02, as well as pads properly labeled for the very, very iconic EVA-01. All these models are the same. They're just painted and casted differently, and obviously printed with different labels. So putting that out of the way, I want to really quick talk about some of the flaws with this figure, and I want to right off the bat say that these flaws, as far as I can tell, they don't look like universal QA issues, but my guess is probably just you're going to receive a varied amount of small defects or small QC issues throughout your figure if you choose to buy it. At the price point, I know I still paid, you know, I obviously paid a little bit of an upcharge, but still at the $270, $280 that this figure is marketed at, you would think. So that's pretty weird, and I don't know why that is. But as far as I can tell, it's just a matter of this bottom part of the bicep being tabbed into the plastic properly. And so it looks like I can squeeze some super glue in there and just push that down, and then the problem is fine and the joint is nice and solid again. There's still a little bit of wiggle in there, but it won't push that bicep plate forward anymore. So I'm not as much worried about that one compared to this one, which is still a really big shame. Besides that, there are ever so tiny little issues with the paint. As you can see right here, this black stripe, there's some orange paint in there that is coming through, and so it looks like the black didn't get painted all too well. And this was right out of the box before I touched it. I just sort of held it around and spun it around to see if there's any issues, and I was seeing some of that. There are also some little bits of blue cutting over, so however they were painting it, you can see that there's some orange in that blue line and some blue cutting over the orange there. So there is some little QC error right there. Some of these seam lines along the leg aren't, you know, they look a little bit gappy, but you can even see a little bit there where it's not lining up like 100%. But once again, that's more tiny stuff. But you can even see here, the camera focuses, some gray splotches right up there at the edge. So You know, for a figure that is marketing at about $280, I can understand some of the paint things because honestly, this figure is incredibly painted and there's a lot of different parts here. And so for, you know, for everything considered, the tiny minor paint, you know, infractions or discrepancies are not a big deal to me, especially if this is supposed to be a mech, or not mech in Eva. It's not a mech at all. But something that's in combat, I can deal with a little bit of scuffing here and there. But those joints, both in that bicep panel as well as the loose upper left elbow, to me, I find pretty unacceptable, especially if you're marketing it as a metal build. You know, the whole point is that there's a metal frame in there, and so it's more secure and it's more durable. But right out of the box, there were some, you know, there were some QC issues with the metal frame, which is really what you're paying for here. So that doesn't break up my love for the figure at all. I still think the colors and the details, I mean, the greens and the yellows inside the metal throughout the leg, the really, really nice blue turquoise pops of color are just incredible. I mean, I can't complain about this design at all. I think the colors are chosen perfectly, and I really, really appreciate what Bandai Tamashii has done with this Eva. Yeah, this will be a permanent fixture on my shelf. I don't, you know, I don't foresee this figure going anywhere anytime soon. I'm really, really in love with it. At the same time, it's unfortunate that something at this price point is plagued with something as basic, really, as getting the frame construction correct. That is really unfortunate and honestly should not be the case. You know, granted, I got it from a third-party seller in Japan. So for me, there is no one to contact about the QC issue. And I'm not too familiar with Tamashii Nations. So I'm not even sure that if, you know, I bought it from them directly and I reached out, that they'd be able to do anything about it. Who knows? But that's without saying, still a really, really incredible piece. Now, as a customizer, because this is going on my shelf, there are definitely some things that I want to do extra on this guy. There are a lot of etched details, as you guys can see up there, that are just not really picked out in paint. You know, they're just sculpted in, which is really, really great. But it's, you know, as I've said many a time before, it's really unfortunate when you have a lot of detail and you can't see it. At a distance, a lot of the panel lining detail that's put into this guy, some of it disappears, unfortunately. So I think I want to do some black panel lining on this guy just to really bring out some of those effects. And I think because I want this figure to look a little bit worn and weathered, and because I have some paint scuffing details or some little QC issues throughout the figure, I think I might want to maybe give it a little bit of a light dry brush and some gunmetal to help bring those edges out and bring out more of a battle-worn and weathered look. Especially on these accessories where 90% of it or even 95% of it is just cast gray plastic. I think a makeover would go a long way to improve the look of this figure because the details are great, the models are great, the angles and the colors are all good, but at the end of the day, you know, I think more detail is always something to be desired, and definitely in some areas more than others it lacks in some nice detailing. So I think I will probably weather up my own version just for my own customizing pleasure, because and for any of you customizers out there, you know how it is, where we become really OCD. No figure is perfect up until we've put our hand to it. So that's probably what I'm going to end up doing with my version right here. Coming to size comparisons real quick, let me pull out my Tron figure, which is based off the Hasbro Snake Eyes. As you can see, probably about a 5 or 6 inch figure, comes out to mid torso on the Evangelion. And so to the head, it's probably about another 2, maybe 3 inches taller. And then to the fins, it's probably about 4 to 4.5 inches taller. So in total height, this thing with the back fins on, you're probably looking on the side of 9 to maybe 10 inches tall. It's a pretty impressive size for sure. Especially when you have the weight to it. It feels really good. Obviously, this is not a 1/6 scale Hot Toys figure, so it definitely doesn't hold that same amount of volume and size on the shelf, but I think it more than makes up for it in the articulation, in the detailing, as well as just the complexity of the design. I find this figure very, very impressive, despite the fact that there are a couple glaring issues with it. I think, with all that being said, I probably will be investing in other ones. I'm not necessarily sure if I'll be buying EVA-01 and EVA-02, despite having the shoulder pads, but in sort of researching a little bit for this review and just sort of understanding what EVA-00 actually is, I'm quite interested in EVA-03 and EVA, I think it's Mark 8. Both of those have really cool designs, and I would love to see them in a metal build format in the future, and hopefully some of those QC issues are also corrected. As far as I can tell, these metal build figures come out every 1 or 2 years, so it's not quite like Hasbro or Mezco where you get multiple releases a year. Tamashii Nations definitely seems to take their time with rolling these out, so hopefully that means that a little extra R&D is put into each one of these new releases. So hopefully in the future they will get better, but simply for me as an artist, I really, really like the look of this guy. I mean, from the details in the fins to all the different metal paint to the paint colors, it's just all quite impressive. And coming to the back here, I didn't show it off earlier, but there is this really incredible spine that runs throughout the whole thing, and obviously everything's layered, so it all crunches back and tucks up really nicely. So yeah, just very, very happy, very, very impressed with how this figure has turned out overall. So without further ado, thank you all for watching this overview. Once again, I know it's not necessarily my standard content, but I'm really happy to be able to show this guy off. This is so cool. I mean, having that battle mask on there, putting a rifle in its hand, very, very fun. And so I look forward to seeing other releases and hopefully adding other releases to my collection. And if you guys are ever on the fence about these, I do feel like eBay has relatively good prices, even with some of them upcharged. I don't, looking at the quality of this guy, I don't feel like I was being scalped at all. It's not like some Hot Toys that are being sold for, double or triple what they were on retail. Most of the listings I've seen on eBay, even at new, are probably only $60 to maybe $80 more. And so not really scalper level prices as far as I can tell. So I would say absolutely worth to pick up if you get a chance, if you're interested in having some die-cast figures that aren't necessarily ginormous, Gundam or ginormous Hot Toys. If you want something that's a little bit more moderate and a little bit more within probably the height and size range of your current collection, I think these are a perfect addition. They're tall, they've got weight, but they don't really require as much shelf space, or aren't as demanding for shelf space as some of those 1/6 scale figures are. So thank you all for joining me for this review and listening to my thoughts. Once again, I know it's not my standard content, but I hope you guys still enjoyed it. I will be having a review for a custom cable that I'm working on out very soon, and then just continue to look for my updates on my Instagram page about all the commissions that I'm working on so far. Also, since this is coming out on Saturday, I want to thank everyone who did pre-order my Dishonored style 3D heads. I'll be printing those out and shipping those out next week, And I just appreciate all your guys' support, both on this YouTube channel as well as for my customs on my Instagram page. And so without further ado, I will catch you all later and have a great weekend. Take care.